and maybe go out and train again, depending on the schedule. But everybody had lunch together. So I remember, like, you're sitting at tables, and next to you is Ashley Cole, and I think Martin Keown was there, and Tony Adams. And I remember even at one stage, Arsene Wenger pulled everybody in for a chat. And I don't know how I ended up in the room, but I'm in there, and I can't even remember what he was talking about, but and I should, because it's Arsene Wenger. Derry City was probably my favourite year, because I was playing with what I believe is the best manager I've ever played with. A guy called Stephen Kenny, who's obviously the Irish national team manager right now. Think of a stadium, 90,000 people, electricity goes out, so everybody's just using their mobile phones.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and it was enough light to obviously see the pitch. So I'm warming up on the pitch going, this is like, what an experience. I'm never going to forget this. I get to build everything from scratch. So it's a lot of work, but it's work that I'm going to really enjoy doing. And yeah, a little bit of I played Football Manager in the past as well. That's great fun.
Born in Dublin in the fall of 1983, ever since taking his first steps on a football pitch, his talent and the rightfully earned pedigree of a relentless number 9 have taken our guest across the wind-swept pitches of Ireland, the beer-filled stadiums of England, the electric atmospheres of top-flight Iranian football, the faraway shores of Malaysia, and eventually he has landed on the exciting and fast-growing stage of Northern American football. Following a Lewandowski-worthy performance in the Tehran Derby in 2012, he was voted World Footballer of the Week by online magazine Goal.com, yet that was only one of the instances in which he made the scoring a hat-trick look like a stroll in the park. Ladies and gentlemen, the Anglo-Italian pod is delighted and thrilled to welcome League of Ireland and League of Ireland Cup winner and the current manager of newborn side Northern Colorado Hailstorm, drumroll, Eamon Zayed. Welcome, Eamon.
Cheers. That's quite the introduction. That was impressive. I enjoyed that.
Hey, I worked on it all day yesterday, and also Rory's here with us today. How are you doing, Rory?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, I am here, present and correct. Good.
Thank you very much for agreeing to come on the pod. Eamon, how are you doing? You're in Colorado right now, correct?
Yeah. Firstly, cheers for having me on. Secondly, I'm in Colorado. Absolutely beautiful, stunning up here. The weather's gorgeous. Can't complain. I've been here about probably 1 to 2 months now. So loving life at the moment, and it's really exciting what we're trying to do up here,
As long as it's not winter, Colorado is a great place to be. But we are going to start our interview with a bit of history of your career, how you started in the world of football. And then, of course, we are going to look at your pro career and at your big move to the United States and the very exciting project that you're working on right now. Being my co-host, half Irish, I assume that the history starts in Dublin. And so, Rory, I will let you go with the first questions.
Beautiful. So, of course, you started your career in Ireland, but I saw at first you were in the Leicester Youth Academy. Is that right? Before getting a move to Bray Wanderers.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah. And actually, strangely enough, I know we were talking before I jumped on. When I was 16 years of age, I actually turned down a contract to sign for Arsenal. I got offered a 3-year deal in Arsenal. Liam Brady was head of the academy there, and I went over for about 4 weeks during the summer. And it was literally the year before I finished school, before I finished secondary school. And I went over. I had an unbelievable summer. I was playing in. I remember the team, I was playing up front with who was it? David Bentley.
Oh, wow. Now he's a character, right? That guy.
Yeah. Honestly, the team was filled with stars who went on, and Justin Hoyt, Steve Sidwell, Rowan Ricketts, Graham Stack in goals, Jermaine Pennant. It was filled with players that went on and had unbelievable careers, and I was playing up top with David Bentley in a couple of games. Actually, decent little partnership that was, because after a few games they offered me a contract, and and I ended up turning it down because I had 1 year left in school, and I'll be honest, I was there for 4 weeks. I was a little bit homesick, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was always something that I kind of look back on and said, like, kind of like, what if? Because as I said, that team was full of stars that went on, and some of them made it quite big. But look, the year later, I went over to Leicester City. I got my kind of second opportunity to sign a contract over in England, and I went over there as a young kid, full of dreams. And it just obviously didn't work out. I ended up only being over there for a couple of years before I came back to Bray Wanderers.
Well, I just wanted to quickly go back. Like, obviously, Liam Brady is like a giant in the history of Irish football. How was that at such a young age to be like around someone of that stature? And like, you were, of course, aware of how big a player he was for Ireland, right?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, look, it was obviously that was exciting and intimidating at the same time. And I remember, like, again, you know, I'm a young 16-year-old going over to such a big club, and it was great. The Arsenal setup was you train in the morning, and then you'd obviously go in and have lunch, and maybe go out and train again, depending on the schedule. But everybody had lunch together. So I remember, like, you know, you're sitting at tables, and next to you is Ashley Cole, and I think Martin Keown was there, and Tony Adams. And I remember even at one stage, Arsene Wenger pulled everybody in for a chat. And I don't know how I ended up in the room, but I'm in there, and I can't even remember what he was talking about, but and I should, because it's Arsene Wenger. But no, it was mad. Like, you know, you were just surrounded by absolute superstars. So yeah, that was mind blowing, and I honestly feel like it really brought out probably the best in me in terms of my football. The one thing I remember in training, and there's a big focus on it in this is pre-season in the summer. The coaches really gave you like the freedom, and they wanted you to showcase your raw talent and your freedom of play. And I felt like in every kind of session that we done in training, and I felt, I don't know, it just brought out the best in me, and I had a really good 4 weeks there, and great experience.
Yeah, and talking about, I wanted to ask you, so you were at Leicester City, first at Arsenal. You listeners should have looked at Rory's face while Eamon was talking about meeting Arsene Wenger. But I wanted to ask you, what was your feeling at Leicester? Because here at the pod, we love the story of the rise of the Foxes, how they won the title. They won the FA last year. So did you have the impression that it was an extremely well-run club? Was it before they started becoming the Leicester that they are now? What were your overall feelings?
Yeah, when I look back on it, like, it was a well-run club in terms of the infrastructure, the training facilities and everything like that. But they were going through a kind of a weird period. This was back in early, I can't even get my dates right. It was early 2000, 2003, somewhere around that time. And Martin O'Neill had been the coach, and he had done really well with them. They'd done well in the Premier League, and I think I know he got to a cup final. They might have even won an FA Cup under him. But they had some good players. Muzzy Izzet, Robbie Savage, like they had
Neil Lennon, maybe Neil Lennon.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they had some good players. But when I went there, Martin O'Neill had just left, and Peter Taylor was who actually was in charge at the time, and it was his assistant coach who came over to Ireland and saw me playing, which is unusual because usually it's an academy scout or something like that. And he was really impressed. So when I went over to Leicester, like, I went straight into the reserve team. You know, as a 17-year-old, I skipped the under 17s, 18s, 19s, and went straight into the reserve team, and they really liked me, and I was enjoying it. And then 3 months later, Leicester City were bottom of the Premiership, and they sacked Peter Taylor, and in comes Dave Bassett and Micky Adams. And I mean, you know, in football, like, if you want to make it big, you obviously you need talent, but you really do need a bit of luck, and you need a manager and coach who honestly, the most important thing is somebody who believes in you, and who likes you as a player. And from day one, I just like, as this, what am I, 17, turning 18? I was training with the first team, and I remember I fell out with Micky Adams, who was honestly not a great person. You know, a bit of a wanker, if I'm being honest. He really was. Like, you know, I remember, like, as an 18-year-old, we're playing a five-a-side, kind of, you know, I think it was the weather wasn't great. We were playing indoors and we were playing like a five-a-side, and you had to hit something behind the goal. You know, and it was like whoever hits it, one team on, one team off. So I hit this behind the goal, and Micky Adams, he was relatively young, so he was getting involved in training, which, funny enough, a lot of coaches actually in the Premiership, like, I went over to Newcastle and Graham Souness was involved in training, and I went over to Everton and Dave Moyes was involved. Like they enjoy, obviously they're ex-players, they like playing. But anyway, Micky Adams was playing, and I hit this thing behind a goal, and he's like, no goal, and I'm like, all right. I didn't say anything. I mean, I hit it. It was like an object behind the goal that you had to hit because it was five-a-side indoor, no goalkeeper. Anyway, I went up and hit the thing again, and he said no goal. And, you know, as an 18-year-old, I should have just shut up. I was like, what the fuck do you mean it was no goal? I mean, and I start, like, obviously, you know, heat of the moment, you're in training, you want to win because you have that competitive nature. And he looked at me, didn't say anything. Anyway, a few minutes later, his team go up and score a goal, and he turns around to me and he says, "That's how you score an effing goal." And he had a bag of balls, and he started kicking the balls at me, and I'm only like a young 18-year-old, and he started kicking the balls at me one by one. And he says, "You get the fuck out of here." And honestly, that was, when I look back on it, I mean, that was honestly, it was the start of the end, because, like, I didn't train with the first team much after that. Always felt I was walking on eggshells around him because I didn't know how to react. He's the first team coach. And I just didn't enjoy it. And a year and a half later, or a year later, Leicester City actually got relegated. And this was right before big TV money came into England. And I remember all the first team and the junior pros, because I was a junior pro at the time, got called into a room and they said, listen, anybody can leave if they want. Doesn't matter how big, small you are, you can leave, because financially we're accepting bids for anybody. And I got in touch with my agent. Well, it wasn't somebody reached out to me from Ireland who was a coach of a team back in Ireland. He was also an agent, and he said, "Eamon, listen, come home, like, get out of there, come home. I'll negotiate some kind of settlement on your remaining 2 years there, and just get out of there." And honestly, that's, you know, I wanted to do that. I just wanted to get out of there because I just felt obviously unwanted, and I was young and kind of disillusioned, and I just wanted to go home and play football again with my friends, you know.
It's mad how, like, if someone can just take an instant disliking to you, then that's it, you're done. Like, if you know what I mean, it seems like, and obviously it happens in plenty of jobs, but how, like, when you're 18, how did you deal with that? Did you take it personally, or were you just like, oh, it's that guy, I'll be fine, I'll find somewhere else? No,
honestly, like, if that had happened, you know, obviously, you know, in my mid to late 20s or, you know, whatever, I would have dealt with it. But at the time, I'm 18 years of age, and, you know, I'm playing for a big Premiership club, and he's, you know, he's a, I wouldn't say he's a big coach, but he's a coach of a Premier League team. And no, I was disillusioned, and I didn't know how to react, honestly. I didn't. As an 18-year-old, I didn't really deal with it, to be honest. I was more like I probably, you know, I had the attitude, like, you know, like, fuck you. Like, if you don't like me, well, then whatever. I don't like you, kind of thing. And that was that. Instead of dealing with it in a better way. And, you know, I can look back, and I had a couple of issues with coaches, probably from, you know, in my early 20s, let's say, or, you know, I went over to Norway for a short spell, and I had an issue with a coach there. And, you know, as a player, like, I should have dealt with these situations better. But look, as an 18-year-old, you don't know any better. You're just a young kid, you know, and he's the adult, and he's the head coach. And I'd never treat a young player like that, ever. Not a chance, not in a million years. Even if he pissed me off so much, I still would not, because that's just not the way you treat anybody, let alone an 18-year-old.
Yeah. And right now you're a manager. We'll talk about that later. So you're gonna have to deal with 18-year-olds who might get a little bit offended. Make sure that if they hit the object behind the goal, you just say hit. That's a goal. That's it. But so we kind of have gotten to your start in the League of Ireland, and we wanted to ask you, how was the League of Ireland when you started out in terms of level and facilities, and how do you think it has changed to now?
Yeah, it's changed massively. So when I got into the League of Ireland, it was full of talented players. Like, I mean, really, really, like they were like just some really talented players. And this was kind of like, in Ireland, we had the Celtic Tiger, and financially there was money flowing around the economy, and teams had money to pay players. So facilities were okay. They're much, much better now, but they were okay. Crowds weren't bad. I guess it was full of talented players, but back then it was kind of old school mentality in terms of, so there was not, strength and conditioning wasn't obviously massive. Players would still, go out on the piss for a few drinks straight after the game and continue on for the rest of the weekend. So that kind of professional mentality wasn't there, but there was some super talented players. And it was a good league. It was a great league to be a part of. And I loved it. I was back playing with some of the lads that I grew up playing with for underage teams. I was near my family as well. So, I mean, I was playing with a smile on my face, which was the most important thing, because that just enabled me to just play even better. But it was so I'd say from 2003 to I guess 2011, 2012, I think the standard was really good. There was some really excellent players. And then again, kind of hand in hand with, I guess, the recession in Ireland. It trickled from 2010 onwards, but I'd say 2012 to maybe 2000 for a few years anyway, the standard in the league wasn't great back in Ireland. It just wasn't great. The better players were leaving, going to England or Scotland or wherever they were going, and it wasn't any money to pay these players to try and keep them. But one thing that allowed was there was a bigger emphasis on younger players, and clubs trying to get, I guess, get the academies up and running, which they have done in Ireland. And there's a more emphasis on the coaching side of things, and then the strength and conditioning side of things came on board as well. And I would say, then after those few years from 2012 to 2015, 2016, again, it picked up a lot in Ireland, and there's some really good. When I started, there was an emphasis on, there was like older players, really good old. And when I say older, I mean like, anywhere from 26 to 35. Mm-hmm. Whereas now in Ireland, there's really good, talented young players. I mean, really good young players. And it's also seen as a league where, especially with the academy, there's an under 15, 17, 19 academy structure in Ireland as well now. And I feel like it's also looked at as a platform for younger players to say, do you know what, I don't need to go to England when I'm 16, 17, 18. I can stay and I can try and get first team football with a team in Ireland, and then make it, and then make that jump when I'm ready and when I'm more mature. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding. There's numerous players that have gone on to had good careers, where it's James McLean, Ennis Stevens, Wes Houlihan. I mean, there's plenty. Shane Long, Kevin Doyle. I mean, there's loads and loads of players who have gone on from the League of Ireland at a later age. So now, yeah, as I said, over the last few years, 5 years, Stephen Kenny went into Dundalk, transformed that club. Shamrock Rovers with Stephen Bradley and the infrastructure that they have, especially with the academy teams. League of Ireland's in a great place right now, and it's seen even in some European results and some of the teams making European qualifying competitions, group stages. It's definitely at a very good point now.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you brought up Dundalk. That's actually my mum's hometown team, so I always keep an eye out for them. But I did notice one of the first hat tricks in your career for Bray Wanderers actually came against Dundalk, and it broke the record of the quickest hat trick for a Bray Wanderers player between the 7th and the 15th minute. Now, I was looking at your scoring record. So in 105 games, you scored 54 goals for Bray Wanderers. How did that feel, being so young and your first, you finally got an opportunity in football and you're scoring basically every other game? How did that feel?
Look, it felt great, but when I think about my time in Bray Wanderers, and this is the biggest thing, I think when a player is happy and they feel at home. It doesn't actually have to be their home, but they feel at home at a club or, you know, or a different country or city, perhaps. They play their best football. And like when I was at Bray Wanderers, I was playing with like guys you grew up with. Some of the guys in the team were guys I grew up with, but it was a great group of guys. And, you know, my family got to watch me. My mom was there every game and cheer me on. And it never, do you know what? It never felt like a job. It just felt like I was going out having fun playing football with my friends. And that's how, at times, I mean, obviously football is a job if you're a fully paid professional player, but at the same time, it's obviously you want to win. It's a game. So when you play on a Saturday, Friday night, whatever the case is, for 90 minutes, like, it's a game. Have fun, go out, enjoy it, and that's what it was. And because of that, I was so loose, especially in front of goal, and composed. And yeah, I mean, that's, you know, I guess I had a decent record at Bray, you know. Yeah,
well, that's not a bad record at all. Now, after Bray, before we go to your stint in Iran, where I discovered you was when you came on loan for a brief stint at Crewe Alexandra. Now, I was very excited because it was an Irish striker coming over to Crewe. Obviously, as I've said, and as the listeners are aware, my mum was Irish. I was quite excited. Now, we don't have to spend too long on it, but what happened there? Because it was a very short stint, and then you just went.
So very briefly, like, so that was, you know what, that was a move that I regret, and I'll tell you why. I just finished the Irish Under-20 World Cup. I was with the Irish team. We were playing out in Dubai. I also got called into the Irish Under-21s, and because of that, there was interest from clubs over in England, and I was still contracted to Bray Wanderers. So Everton were interested, so I went over and trained with Everton for the week. Had a really good week, you know, and I played well. And straight after that, this was already scheduled. I was going there for the week, and then I was going up to Crewe Alexandra for the week. So when I went up to Crewe Alexandra again, I had a good week, and I remember at the end of that week, David Moyes rang my, I think it was my coach at Bray Wanderers at the time, and he said, "Look, what's going on with Eamon? How did he get on Crewe? We like him." And my coach said, "Look, he's got on really well at Crewe. They want to offer him a deal." And he said, "Look, I'll be honest. I mean, you know, if we bring Eamon into Everton, like, he's obviously not going to get in. He's not going to break through to the first team right now. I would suggest for him, he go to Crewe Alexandra. It's probably a better move for him, and he'll get game time. So, but we'll keep an eye on him." So, Crewe Alexandra, they wanted to sign me. I think they wanted to sign me on an 18-month or 2.5-year deal, but Bray Wanderers would only allow me to go out on loan because they were hoping that I'd go out to Crewe, play really well, and then they could sell me on. So anyway, I went to Crewe. It was a 6-month loan move, and I went in thinking that I was obviously going to get some game time. Dario Gradi was the coach. Again, it comes down to it was actually the assistant coach who really liked me and probably made the transfer happen. Because when I got in there, Dario Gradi, he didn't like me from day one. He didn't like me.
It's fairly known that he's a difficult character. It was fairly well known. Like, yeah.
And I could just tell. I mean, I could tell he didn't like me as a person or as a player. And I felt, you know, they were in the championship at the time. Now, in fairness, they had Dean Ashton playing up front, who was, honestly, he was so good. Like, he was so good, like, really good. And obviously, he went on and got a move the following year to West Ham. But, you know, I knew I wasn't going to get in ahead of him. But I thought that I could still get some game time. And I didn't. Like, I didn't. I was on the bench, and I never made one appearance for them. And that, and then 6 months later, that was that. And again, that was really disappointing when I think about it, because I was at a point in my career where, you know, there was I remember there was 2 guys same age as me, Kevin Doyle, who was in that under-20 squad, got over to Reading, and Stephen Ward got over to Wolves, I think, or Sunderland. There was players who were getting moves, and I felt at that time I was doing better things than them. I was scoring more goals than them, and I was playing better than them. And that was just a bad move, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out at all. And that brought me back, because that was a big opportunity to get over to England, you know?
Yeah.
Right. So you've had a very interesting career. and we still have a lot of ground to cover. But in your time in Ireland, after coming back from Crewe Alexandra, you played for Drogheda United, the Sporting Fingal, and Derry City. And there you won a League of Ireland with Drogheda United and the League of Ireland Cup with Derry City. Very quickly, what memories do you have about these great accomplishments? And I always think, to be Irish in this case and to win the League of Ireland and the League of Ireland Cup, was it a particularly satisfactory feeling for you?
Yeah, it was great memories. So Drogheda United, I had a great time there, but that felt like, especially with the coach at the time, a guy called Paul Doolan, that felt like a job, and he would actually hammer it home in training, like, this is a job, you're getting paid for this. So I was there for 2.5 years. We won a league title, which was great. It was the first league title for Drogheda, and we had a really good team, the best team in Ireland. It was a really good team, really good squad. I got to represent them in Europe, and from a professional standpoint, it was a good time. But there was moments where I didn't enjoy it. Obviously, you enjoy when you're winning, but there was moments where I didn't enjoy it. Just because of the atmosphere that the coach created. But again, successful time, loved it. Great fan base, great people in Drogheda. Derry City was probably my favorite year. Because I was playing with what I believe is the best manager I've ever played with. A guy called Stephen Kenny, who's obviously the Irish national team manager right now.
Nice.
And it was just a year where I guess everything came together in terms of just me as a player, as an individual. I loved it. I mean, I loved the city. Derry City's it's a working class city, great people. Obviously, there's a lot of history there, because I guess Derry's technically part of the UK, but no, great people, great team. I mean, there was some great players playing in that team as well. And Stephen Kenny as a coach, just he gave you the freedom to go out and play and express yourself, especially as an attacking player. I guess that was my favorite year when I look back playing in Ireland, playing with Derry City. And you asked me about, I guess achievements. Yeah, that was when I went to Derry City. There was a couple of things that I wanted to do. One, I wanted to prove that I wanted to be top goal scorer in the league. It was an individual award, but I had never won it. I'd score goals, but I'd never won it. So I wanted that. And I got that at Derry City. There was a League Cup that I had won every other title in Ireland and individual award prior to that year, except for the League Cup, Player of the Year, and top goal scorer. And I got that at Derry City. They were the three. I know 2 of them were individual, but I wanted them. It wasn't to say, look at me, I'm great. It was just a chip on my shoulder, prove people wrong. And then the League Cup was obviously the FAI Cup is the bigger cup, which I won with Sporting Fingal, but the League Cup is still the one that I just hadn't won yet. So I completed everything. So when 2011 finished in Derry, I had won everything I wanted to do in Ireland, and that allowed me, from a mental standpoint, move on.
That's incredible. I think because sometimes people say, like you said, football's not an individual sport, and sometimes they look down on like people who chase individual awards. But it's still, as with anything, it's important to have personal targets that you want to meet and you want to reach, right? But I wanted to quickly go back very quickly to Stephen Kenny, because he's obviously getting a lot of pressure with Ireland at the moment, and of course he did an incredible job at Dundalk. How good a manager is this guy? I can see what he's trying to do. Do you think he'll get there with Ireland?
He will if he's given time, which I believe he will be. Stephen Kenny, as I said, he's the best manager I've ever played with. And I played with a couple of decent international managers with the Libya national team. I played with, obviously one of the most famous Turkish managers over in Iran, and other managers around the world. But he has the ability to... he's a great man manager, and he's the ability to bring out the best in his players, to see the best in them and then bring it out. And that's a trait that not all managers have. I think Stephen is, he's not the best coach, but he, in terms of on the field training. but his knowledge of the game, his analysis, his tactical know-how, I mean, it's spot on. I mean, he's as good as anybody. But it's really the ability to bring out the best in the players. And, you know, obviously as a leader and as a manager, you have an idea and you need your team to buy into it. You know, and he done that at Dundalk. Absolutely, 100%. Everybody bought into it, and he became the most successful manager ever in Ireland. And you know, I think with the Irish national team, he's probably going through a bit of an odd phase, because it's probably at the moment the weakest in my generation. It's the weakest of a set of players. You know, and that's for numerous reasons that are available to him, but we have some really good, talented young players, and Stephen is unbelievable with young players and bringing out the best in young players and giving them that confidence. And I have no doubt that, you know, in a few years, if he's given time, which I hope he will, and some of these younger players mature, I think it's going to be really, really good for the nation and really exciting.
I hope so. I hope so. There was encouraging signs against Portugal last night anyway. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, the goalkeeper's 19. The centre-back made his debut, 19. You know, I mean, really, really encouraging signs. And I would just encourage Irish fans not to really look at the results right now, because that's just the phase that we're in. But trust the process, especially the underage process, and in Stephen Kenny. And in a couple of years, you will absolutely see the benefits.
So after Derry City, you made a big move away from the old continent, and you went all the way to Iran. And we were just talking about managers, but also personal accomplishments. And we have to mention this name because his record was overtaken last night in the game against Ireland by Cristiano Ronaldo. You were coached when you played for Persepolis by Ali Day. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Nope.
Ali Daei is a club legend.
Wikipedia lied. Damn it.
Yeah, no, Ali Daei was the.
God damn it! At least I nailed the introduction for the guest, right?
Ali Daei is a legend, and yeah, you're right. I mean, he was top goal scorer in international football. I mean, prior to recently, legend, and he was heavily involved in Persepolis. But he ended up taking over as coach a couple of years after I left. The coach I had was a guy called Mustafa Denizli, who honestly he's the first Turkish coach to ever win 3 national league titles in Turkey with Fenerbahce, Besiktas, and Galatasaray.
Wow!
Holy crap! Wow!
Yeah, and he coached Turkey at a World Cup as well. So he from a managerial standpoint, he's much more highly qualified than Ali Daei.
But
maybe not from a goal scoring point of view, right?
No, legend. Ali Daei is a legend in terms of goals.
But I was intrigued. How did the move to Iran come around, and what made you decide to make that move? Because I know Persepolis are a massive club in Iran, right? The support is huge. But how did that move come around? How was it when you got there?
The move came on the back of my time with Derry City, because I was top goal scorer and player of the year. I mean, it's an individual accolade, but that's really why, you know, it's funny how I guess some scouts and agents work, and that's a whole nother conversation. But literally, you know, a scout over in Iran was looking elsewhere for players, and he obviously Ireland came up and he saw top goal scorer, player of the year. He didn't know anything about me. That's what he saw. He saw those headlines and he thought, I'll get in touch with him. And, you know, somebody had got in touch with me at the end of that season. Obviously, this is November, December time. So mid-season break in Iran. And they asked me, would you like to go to Iran? And I was like, I honestly laughed it off going, yeah, good one. You're joking. And I didn't think of it for a week or two. And again, another story, but I went over to Brunei on a trial for a week, and I think I went to Qatar with the Libyan national team to play a few games, and the agent gets back in touch with me a couple of weeks after his initial approach and said, no, really, would you like to go to Iran? It's till the end of the year, and it's just going to be a short-term package. This is what you're going to be getting financially every month. You know, would you consider it? And I said, I was like, so I get on Google and look at Iran, and obviously I you know, see how big the obviously football is. It's massive. I saw how big Persepolis is, But as a nation, I didn't really know anything about it, except for you put on Google and you read Iran and nuclear bombs and all this kind of bad stuff. Because that's what you see in the internet. So one thing though that I did see, there was an Irish embassy. So I rang the Irish embassy, who were based in Iran at the time, and they put my mind at ease. They said, Eamon, honestly, you'll love the football. Like they're avid supporters. They're like, you'll love the football. People are absolutely lovely over here, friendly. Forget what you read. Do it. You won't regret it. And I said, why not? It was honestly, I was probably, I mean, even when I went over to Iran and they put the contract in front of me, I was so close to not signing it. But
really?
Honestly, I was so close to not signing it because I was honestly did not know what to think. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did because it was an unbelievable experience. It was life-changing.
And I mean, we put up on our Instagram stories, we put up a post for our listeners to tell them, like, is there anything you would like to ask Eamon? Man, you've got so many messages from Iran. Questions like, will you ever come back to Persepolis? Then we've got just hearts, love, and followed by a lot of hearts. Zayed hat trick, somebody's writing. Somebody else is sending you a rose, a heart, and saying Persepolis 10-10-3. So safe to say that you've become a legend in Tehran. Can you tell us a bit more about that and that specific story?
Yeah, I can. Again, I don't know how long we have in this podcast because I can go on and on.
Don't worry about it.
At this point, just go for it, man.
What an experience. Like when I went over, as I said, I didn't know what to expect. You know, and I've told the story many times, but I mean, you got to say, like, I mean, you know, so I got over there after their mid-season break, the 1st of January, and the coach didn't know who the hell I was because he hadn't signed me as the president of the team, you know, and literally he said, look, I'll have a look at you in training and we'll go from there because I don't know what you're like. As I said, they signed me off the basis that I was top goal scorer in Ireland and player of the year. So a couple of weeks go by and I mean, I'm not the best trainer. I'm not the worst trainer. Right. I'm not the worst. I'm not the best. Like, I'm not somebody, some people come in and they just stand out in training. Mm-hmm. I don't. I just get by. And then when it comes to finishing at the end of the session, I absolutely love finishing. And I think I look good in terms of finishing. But a couple of weeks go by, and we're at the end of January, and the coach rings my agent and he rings the president and he says, I don't want this guy. I'm not going to play him. I've seen enough. And it was at this point where the president of the team said, no, look, you're going to give him at least one chance. Because results, to be fair, hadn't been going particularly well. They've been going, again, average. Mm. So look, it was, I got my chance in the big derby, and you know, at the time I didn't know what. I obviously I know what a derby is, and you know, Liverpool, Everton, or Celtic, Rangers, and obviously they're massive games. I didn't know how big it was, so you know, I'm there cruising on the bus, chilling, listening to my music, and everybody is kind of like really uptight, and I could see the players were like, they look frightened. You know, and get into the stadium, it's 90,000 people, and I'm like buzzing. I'm thinking, this is great. Look at this, like, you know, and just kind of listening to my music. And I remember even at halftime, we were 1-0 down at halftime, and it was freezing. Back in February, it was so cold, and I went in and grabbed a cup of tea, and I literally grabbed a cup of tea and was just sitting there, and the coach was going mad at the players, and it was, I mean, out like. It was so bizarre. The lights, so weird. Honestly, the lights went out in the stadium for like about 10 minutes, and they went out in the dressing room. So I'm sitting there in the corner, pitch dark, having a cup of tea. The coach is speaking, you know, Turkish or Persian, translated to Persian, and I'm going, what's going on here? Like, where am I? And next thing, all I hear is Eamon, and I'm like, what? Like, shit, what? And the translator, because he had a translator, the coach comes up to me and says, Eamon, warm up. So I go out, warm up at halftime. Again, it's honestly, I wish I had pictures because it was beautiful. Think of a stadium, 90,000 people, electricity goes out, so everybody's just using their mobile phones.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and it was enough light to obviously see the pitch. So I'm warming up on the pitch going, this is like, I mean, what an experience. I'm never going to forget this. And then, you know, the game kicks off, and I'm still warming up on the sideline, and we go 2-0 down. I think it was around the 60th minute or something like that, that the coach says, come on, you're coming on. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that he felt the game was finished. We were playing against Esteghlal, who were top of the league at the time. We were like 9th or something. And he thought, look, the president wants me to play this guy. Well, there you are. Look, go on. All the best. I'll go out and play in the derby. And I've no doubt we did. And I know that because I came on the 60th minute and the 70 something, I don't know, 70th minute, we got a player sent off. And, we were down to 10 men. And like, honestly, like, yeah, there's videos that show it. Like, and I was very close to the doctor who spoke very good English. The coach was making a substitution. He was taking me off. Like I was coming off. I had just been on the pitch 15 minutes. He was taking me off because we had obviously down to 10 men, and he was taking a forward off and going down to 4-4-1. And that's when I scored the first goal. And obviously he's like, hey, whoever that was, I remember Adamaki was, sit down, you. And again in Turkish or Persian, whatever he spoke at the time. And then look, it was all a blur. I mean, like in 10 minutes, 2 more goals come in, and
So wait a second, I'll stop you very quickly because this is one question that we wanted to ask you. Like, one thing that stands out about your resume is the amount of hat-tricks you've scored. So we wanted to know one thing. We're not footballers. We just wanted to ask you, so when you score a hat-trick, can you feel it? Like, after you score the first goal, can you like feel that something is in the air? Like, were you aware that 2 more goals were coming that day?
No. Like, well, I can talk about in general, and then that day. In general, like when a player scores 2 goals, for me anyway. I loved goals. Like I loved scoring goals. Whenever I got the 2 goals, I always thought about the hat trick, scoring the 3rd goal. And most of the time, it just wouldn't happen. But you always, as soon as I got a 2nd goal, and if there's time left in the game, I always thought about the 3rd goal. Now in that game, I didn't, because the first goal went in, and then when the 2nd goal went in, we were down to 10 men. I was thinking 2-2. This is great. Let's keep the ball. And again, I'll tell you a funny story. But so the coach spoke Turkish, and he had a translator that was literally a shadow who spoke Persian. So we got for the 3rd goal. It's the 90th minute, and 2-2 down to 10 men. It was like, keep the ball in the corner. And we get a throw, and you'll see it on video. Our left back's about to throw it infield, and the coach shouts something to him, and he looks over, and it's kind of lost in translation, but it's clear the coach is saying, get the ball in the corner, right?
Right.
So he does throw the ball in the corner, but for whatever reason, and with the idea that we're going to keep it in the corner, but for whatever reason, the player who got it, a tricky kind of left winger player, instead of keeping it, he kind of tricked his way past the defender, and it opened up for a cross. And as I said, I'm sure the coach was like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing crossing the ball? Like, because there's me in the box and 4 defenders. But look, it came to me, and at that, I wasn't thinking of the 3rd goal, because I was just thinking, I'm a hero at 2 goals. So no, when the 3rd goal went in again, it's a blur, and it was unbelievable. Yeah.
Mate,
well,
that's an incredible story. Sorry, Rory.
No, it is. It's insane. And it must be nice to see that even now, like, the fans from Persepolis still, like, remember that hat-trick. And I can feel my phone still going off with messages coming to Instagram from listeners, right? So is that a club now that's, like, really close to your heart, I imagine? Yeah, absolutely. Because, look, like, football in England is obviously massive. Football in a lot of parts of the world is massive, but in the countries like Iran, where they don't have, there's not a lot of other sports to compete with. So soccer is by far the biggest sport over there. Also, just in terms of entertainment, in terms of bars and clubs and all that kind of stuff, there, obviously that's illegal over there. People still do it in the privacy of their own home, but it's illegal. So football is like an escape. I'm not going to call Iran a 3rd world country, but it's like an escape from other things that are going on in their life. So because of that, like, they're absolutely fanatical about it. And I love that. Like, I loved how, like, you saw, like, their energy gave me energy. You feed off, and I'm definitely a player that feeds off other people's energy. So
So the bigger the crowd, the better I felt. So I loved it, and the people were really genuinely, like, I mean, they're so friendly, like they're really nice, and they're really interested in you as a foreigner, as an international, and your culture, and it honestly, it absolutely opened my eyes up massively to, you know, how people, you read the news and you know, and stuff like that, and a lot of the time it's bullshit. Like, and that you need to get over and experience it and see it, and you know, that's not a representation of the people in Iran, whatever. Like, you know, when you're reading some things about nuclear bombs or the government over there or blah blah blah, whatever. That's okay. That's a small, you know, a very 1% or less than 1%. I mean, 99% of the people over there are absolutely beautiful, like really nice people and friendly. And I did, obviously, like anything, like, you know, when you score goals for a club, and people accept you, especially as a foreigner, and they make you feel welcome and make you feel like at home, you have that connection. And, you know, and again, I felt good, and, you know, I don't want to, you know, I'm not saying anything, but I ended up getting 2 hat-tricks, like, you know, after that hat-trick. So, no, but it was because I felt good and I was happy, and I have that connection. I'll always have that connection with Iran.
And before we move on to the United States, which was the end of your career, we've got a question that seems particularly fitting right now from @Mr. Datis on Instagram. I'm assuming he's a Persepolis fan, and he's asking you, what's your opinion about this new look Persepolis after Branco?
Yeah, so when I was there, Persepolis is the biggest team in Iran, but when I was there, they were going through a bit of a weird period, not really challenging for the titles or anything like that. And then Branko Ivanovic came in, and really, like, a great coach. And again, I wasn't there. I wish I was there when he was there, because he transformed the team and you know, got them obviously winning again, and now they're dominating over there. He left. I don't even want to pronounce his last name. Ali Reza came in, but he's done really well, and they're flying. The results haven't changed. They're still dominating, you know. So no, they're a really good team, exciting team, and I mean they're dominating right now. So it's hard to complain.
Yeah.
Any faults, you know.
Beautiful. So before you go to the US, you do have a very quick stint in Malaysia. Was that another kind of adventure? How did it feel to go to, again, another country that I think people forget how passionately people feel about football in Malaysia? I think the games also there are very well supported, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, soccer's massive in Malaysia, and I think that's why you see a lot of Premiership clubs and top European clubs trying to delve into that market and play preseason games over towards Asia. So no, football's massive in Asia. That came about. It's funny again how football works, and it's all connected. I told you, like, in between Derry City and signing for Iran, I went over to Brunei for a week, and there was an Irish guy over there, a guy called George O'Callaghan, who was actually playing for the team. So fast forward, 2015. He actually ended up taking over a team in Malaysia, in the Borneo Islands, a place called Sabah, and not far from Brunei, where he actually was playing, where I had met him. And I obviously left a good impression on him as a person and as a player, that he rang me up and said, "Hey, listen, do you fancy coming over to Malaysia?" He says, "I remember when you came over for the week in Brunei, you know, obviously we got on, and I liked your style and how you were as a person and your attitude, and I'd like to have you over here if you're interested." And I said, "Why not?" I said, you know, another adventure, something different.
Yeah.
You know, I always wanted to go over to Asia and travel around and see it and experience a different culture. So yeah, I loved it. It was, you know, it was good. It was good. Standard is not great.
Right.
That's a struggle, if I'm being honest. You know, every team can have 4 foreign players, and in Malaysia, they expect the foreign players to produce miracles. Like,
Right. Okay.
Honestly, they do. Like, I mean, and it's
especially the ones with your reputation. Like, why would you sign Eamon Zayed if you're not expecting a hat trick in the dying minutes of your home derby, right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind. But like, yeah, they had Eamon Zayed, but they had El Hadj Diouf, they had Abdullah Fahy. I mean, they were like massive players. Yeah, no, like, and they were two of the other foreigners. So, I mean, I would like, but no, they honestly expect miracles. So, like, and I'll tell, and this is so the first 3 games, we won 2 and drew 1. I got a couple of assists in both games, or in 2 of the games, but I hadn't scored yet. And after the second game, we had won the first 2 games. The owner of the team pulls me, a Chinese businessman, and he said, "Yeah, you haven't scored yet." And I'm laughing it off, thinking it's a joke. And I'm going, "Yeah, I haven't scored, but like we've won, and obviously, a couple of assists or whatever." And he goes, "No, like, are you like, are you okay? Are you feeling okay? Like, when are you going to score?" And I'm thinking, "What? We only played 2 games." And like, he was deadly serious. He was not happy that I had not scored, even though we had won. So that blew my mind. And the 4th game, we played in front of, a regular about 20,000 fans over in Malaysia, and there was a group of fans, like our ultras, a couple of thousand people behind one goal. And I remember in the 4th game, they had a massive sign, and I'm looking at this when I'm going out to warm up, a massive sign, a tifo, that kind of said, "Score Zayed or go home." And we're looking at then.
What the fuck?
We played 3 games, won 2, drew 1, and I'm thinking, what? Is this what's going on here? So I luckily for me, I scored in that game. I ended up scoring 6 on the bounce, 6 games straight. I scored. I think I got 7 goals in that 7 games. And it wasn't like, "Oh, well done, Eamon." It was like, yeah, that's what we expect.
Oh wow.
And it was like, it just, they expect miracles from foreigners. I mean, proper miracles. And great year, great experience. But I'll be honest, 1 year was enough for me there.
I can kind of understand why. I think, quickly before we go to the US, just your thoughts on El Hadj Diouf, because I know people who've worked with him, and
yeah, bonkers.
Okay, right, that's fine.
No, I mean, he's a character, but he's larger than life, and he's yeah. Again, I have a few stories that I can't tell online. Honestly, like, and some of them would honestly blow your mind. But as a player, it was great. As we played 2 up top, I was number 9, he was number 10, and he didn't have the legs. But wow, he still had the ability, and especially in Malaysia, because the standard was not great. I mean, I made any kind of run, and I didn't even have to look at him. I just made a run and hit 5 my feet.
Wow.
I think I got 11 goals that year, and I'd say 7 of them were definitely assists from him. I mean, he was a frightening ability, but look, he came to Malaysia when he just honestly didn't give a fuck about football anymore.
Are you still in touch with him? Are you still in touch with him?
No, I'm not, and I have a story that I just can't say online, but why I'm not in touch with him.
We can wait until we stop recording. Don't worry.
No, he's nuts. I tell you what, I had a great relationship with him for 90% of the time there. I did, because we were a foreigner. He liked to, he's very flamboyant, liked to have fun off the pitch, and again, larger than life character, and he was funny, good banter, and I enjoyed a lot of it. But certain things, you're just like, mate, like what? Like you're I can see why he had so many issues in his career.
I was gonna use you as our middleman to get him to come on the pod,
God,
but I guess we'll have to look elsewhere.
Yeah, you wouldn't want him to be on the show. Well, you would actually. Well, I mean, some of the stories that he has, but anyway, he's mental.
That's awesome. But then from Iran to Malaysia, and then to the United States, where you got to play for the Indy 11, and you got to produce yet another miracle, also known as the miracle of the mic. American listeners, go look that up. It's another hat-trick story, which meant a title for the Indy 11. Then you went to the Charlotte Independence, then to the Chattanooga Red Wolves, and hear about the state of football in the United States of America. We had actually an episode last year. If listeners want to look back at it, it was episode 38 with some of our American friends. We called the episode the American Soccer Renaissance. So right now you're managing a newborn team. You've played also in the US. Can you tell us a bit more about the pyramid of US football? Because for us Europeans, it's quite complicated to understand. And then just about how actually exciting it is to be in this super fast growing environment such as American football.
Yeah. Honestly, again, it's hard to be here for hours trying to explain the pyramid and how soccer works over here. We'll call it soccer now that we're talking about America. How it works. It's bizarre. It's different. It's not what I was used to. I mean, look, this sums it up. When I came over to America in 2016 to play for Indy 11, we played in the NASL, which was the oldest league in America. I mean, 2 years later, that no longer exists. There is no NASL. So what you have in America is you have the MLS, which is everybody knows the MLS, Major League Soccer. That's a monopoly. That's out on its own. It's effectively a first division, no relegation, no promotion. You literally you bid and pay money to try and get into that league, which goes against most people's ideals and soccer being competitive and competitively getting into the top league. Well, look, you have Major League Soccer. That's that's what everybody knows. It's the glamour show of American soccer. And then you have the United Soccer League, the USL. And that's where I'm coaching now, and that's where I've played in for the last couple of years. And I really like what they're trying to do. So the United Soccer League, USL, has a USL Championship and has USL League One. Now there's no promotion relegation, but they are looking into that, and hopefully they'll have that in a few years, because I think that will put it up against the MLS, and will make people decide what is better. But it's a growing league, really, really growing. There's there's how many teams? There's close to 60 teams involved, or 50 teams involved between the two leagues. And obviously America's massive. It's massive. So they split it into the USL Championship is split into a Western Conference and an Eastern Conference, and then they come and play playoffs at the end of the year, because it's America and they like to have playoffs. And again, then you have the USL League One, which I'm going to coach in, which is for me the most exciting, fastest growing league in America. And is obviously the team I'm with now, Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC, are starting next year. They're going to be jumping into that league because it's so exciting. So it's hard to explain into words how it is, but that's literally you have MLS and then you have USL, right? There's another league called NISA that came in this year, but I'm not going to talk about them now because again, it just overcomplicates things. The two leagues that you need to know are the MLS and the USL. And one thing I'll say is that obviously in America, people think you have American football and you have baseball and you have basketball. Since I've been here, soccer has absolutely grown massively. It's the biggest sport in terms that's being played with young kids nowadays. So
it's the Eamon Zayed effect, I think. Since you came to the US, it just went up like that.
I mean, I don't want to take credit for it, but I mean, maybe it's the young kids looking at those hat tricks saying, "Hey, I want to do that one day." But no, it's really, honestly, it's grown so quick, so rapidly in America, all over. I coached young kids, girls and boys. Obviously, the girls' national team are phenomenal, the best team in the world, and it's probably the best league for women in the world. I mean, it is not probably, it is. But it's honestly, it's growing rapidly, and I think it's going to culminate. It's going to continue growing, but then the 2026 World Cup is going to be in America, and I think you're really going to see a peak of people playing soccer, and I think soccer is going to outpace definitely baseball and kind of. I don't know if we'll ever get to American football and basketball, but it'll be close. It'll be close.
Well, yeah, I was kind of doing my research about the USL, the Championship and League One. I find it really nice that they're kind of trying to build the lower leagues. Like when we've seen in Europe that the focus is kind of going away from the lower leagues. I like that in America they're realizing the importance of having the local teams and the kind of the support of local communities. Now, the team that you spent I think most of your time at in America was the Indy 11. Yeah. And this is where you had the miracle of the mic. So for our listeners, do you want to explain to us what happened here? And again, how did it feel to kind of have this huge moment?
Yeah, so basically Indy 11 had they, I think 2014, they came into play. And, you know, for the first couple of years, they were brand new team, great fan base, the best fan base in the NASL and probably USL right now. You know, great community. They love their sports there, but they had no success on the pitch, and that's fair enough because they'd only been around for 3 years when I came on board. But I joined 2016, and there was a big enough change of players. I think there was 10 to 15 players that they brought in. They hired a new coach, and the expectations were that we wanted to do something. We didn't want to just. He brought in winners. He brought in players that wanted to win, and that's important. It's easier said than done. A lot of players are just happy to be professional players, and whatever. Let's just play, and whether we finish 6th or 10th or whatever, it doesn't matter. The players he brought in were winners, and we wanted to win and do well. So, literally, the game, we are neck and neck with New York Cosmos for a championship, and New York Cosmos played. I don't know if it was the night before our game, but they played before us, and they were 3 points ahead of us, and our head-to-head was. I think our head-to-head was better, yeah, because we had beaten them. But that was like the fourth factor. Goals obviously points first, and then I think it goes to goals against, or goals for, goals against, and then head-to-head. So for us to match everything that they had, we obviously had to win our game against North Carolina Railhawks we were playing. We had to win our game. We also had to win our game by 3 goals. And then that would put it to the 4th differential of the head-to-head, which we were better than them on. So, look, leading up to the game, that's something that I do. I remember so much because we knew what we had to do. We knew we had to win by 3 goals. So, we hadn't scored over 2 goals in the game all season. And we were playing against a team that were a good team. We weren't playing against a team that were like bottom of the league. Like North Carolina were a good team, with good players. So to beat them is a great result, but to beat them by 3, I mean, nobody obviously thought we were going to do it. Again, why it's called Miracle at the Mic. I mean, I'm sure our fans didn't even think we were going to do it. And a funny story, which I love to hear, because I just love to hear. The night of the game, the New York Cosmos, the team, they had a watch party, a celebration party. They were watching our game, champagne on ice. Like they were having a night out, like pre-celebrating, and it was just to confirm they were just watching our game. But they had booked out a room, everything. This was all set for them. And yeah, look, we I scored 1 first half, then it was 1-1, and I think an important part of that game was we scored on like literally right before the end of the first half. We scored to put us 2-1 up, and I remember all week. It was funny. I don't know. Sometimes things happen and things are meant to be. Me and a couple of the players that I was really close to, that was closest on the team, an Irish guy called Colin Falvey, who's our captain. We kind of joked about 4-1. We knew we'd concede because we had to go out all out attack. But we thought, right, 4-1 is a realistic. We might concede 1, but if we're going to score by 3, we have to, score 3. But I think 4-1 was more realistic than 5-2 or 3-0. So yeah, look, second half, I scored another one to put us 3-1 up, and again we're pushing and the crowd are behind us, and we really did feel the crowd behind us going into the last 10 minutes of the game. And I think it was the 86th minute, I scored the 4th goal, and obviously my third goal, and I know it was unbelievable. Like to bring to bring a title to obviously to clinch it off New York Cosmos was even better.
They're a huge team, right? Like the name is huge, right? The name is huge.
And they had some good players. And
please tell me you flew to New York and crashed the watch party. Like,
we had a great celebration of ourselves. But no, I mean, when I heard that, I was laughing to myself that we were, I was delighted. But no, it was great. The fans loved it, and it was great to be able to bring a championship to the city. And I mean, look, we're in 2021 now, and it's still the only championship India have ever won. So it was a proud moment, and that was my favorite kind of playing moment in America so far.
Nice.
So before we go to our listeners' last questions and to our customary questions, like the best player you've ever played with, start thinking about it. We kind of wanted to ask you, how does it feel to be not really, so you are going to be the manager, but at the same time, you're helping assemble the team. So is it a bit of a football manager experience, we could say? Rory over here is obsessed with football
So
manager.
I play a lot of football manager, right? And I like to do the create a club. And it seems difficult on that game. So I'm actually intrigued as to just how difficult what have you had to, like, what are the things you didn't expect to have to do, and just how wide-ranging is the job that you're in?
So I guess my title over here, it's they don't call it manager, they call it head coach. It's the same thing. Soccer, football, same thing. But head coach and technical director. So I'm obviously tasked with all the duties that a normal manager or head coach would do, but then it's a brand new club. So from the technical director standpoint, I'm assembling the squad, and also I guess negotiating contracts and putting the technical staff together. And for me, it's a challenge that is really, really exciting, and one that really appealed to me. I actually rather this than going into an already established team and already having, I don't know, like 20 odd players in the books, and having to kind of chop and change and get players off the books and bring some in, and then as well with the technical staff, I get to build everything from scratch. So it's a lot of work, but it's work that I'm going to really enjoy doing. And a little bit of I mean, I played Football Manager in the past as well. That's great fun. And you go out and you sign Ronaldo, and there you are. Like you've I mean, it's not as easy as that. And especially now, with budgets and all that kind of stuff involved. And no, it's great. It's enjoyable, and recruitment is going to be massive. It's the biggest thing in. Ask any coach. Recruitment, you're going to live and die by your recruitment. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if you're a good coach or not. If you get the good players in, that's most of the battle already won. So, it's great. It's great. I love the challenge of being able to build a whole squad. Have players in mind. Most seasons in America, back home in Ireland, and elsewhere further afield, Italy, England, they're all still playing. So I get to look at games and really kind of have an eye on players that I'm interested in, because I'm obviously preparing for 2022.
That's awesome. And if you want, for our listeners, but for you as well, Eamon, if you're interested, last year in our episode 23, we interviewed actually Dundalk manager Filippo Giovagnoli, and it was his first coaching job. He also had a long experience in the US, and we talk about Irish football. So it really seems like down your alley as well. But so we've got time now for a few questions from our followers on Instagram. And the first one that I have for you is James Cleffy your best mate or only your best sports psychologist?
Oh, James himself. James is a great guy. I done my UEFA A license with James. Look, I learned a lot from him from a different standpoint. He obviously he's big into psychology. I mean, that's his career, that's his profession. So, obviously, there's a lot more to football than just the coaching part of it. It's the psychology side of things. And really, I think to be a great leader and a great coach, you have to understand the players and the mentality of the players and tap into that psychology and get them find out what makes them tick and what makes them motivated. And yeah, I mean, he knows better than anybody. I mean, that's his. I think he wants to come over here as assistant coach. I'm not sure if he's that good of a mate. If I'm going to come on,
you can break the news to him on our show. It's fine.
I'll do a couple of Zooms with the players because he's top notch. He's unbelievable with the psychology part of things. Yeah, great guy.
And now get ready for this one, Eamon. Hold on tight. I was really pressured to ask you this question. It comes from your mate Shane McFall. And he's asking you, what really happened in Vegas in 2009?
Yeah,
I'm excited.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I mean, and we'll leave it at that. I mean, all I'll say is Shane let himself down, and he knows it.
Yeah. But because here he's clapping back live, and he says, "Let's just say that Eamon is the worst wingman ever." Is that true?
Honestly, I mean, when you see guys, I mean, missing absolute sitters, open goals. I mean, he's like a few yards out and they still managed to miss the target. I mean, that was him. I mean, I was the best. I was messy with my assists. And he just could not find the back of the net. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. We lost many a game over in Vegas because of him.
You were Messi and he was a peak Alvaro Morata, we could say.
Yeah.
That's great. Love the question, but even more so, loved the answer. So, Rory, for our customary questions to footballers, I let you go.
So we everyone we've interviewed who has played, we ask the same questions. So kind of quick fire-ish. The best player you've ever played with?
Best player I ever played with was Ali Karimi. Probably the best, most talented. Ali Daei is obviously legend in terms of goals. The most talented player ever to come out of Iran was Ali Karimi. Absolute magician. Fantastic player.
Nice. And the best player you played against?
I mean, there's a couple of one of the best players I played against, but it's probably because he's one of my favorite players, was Henrik Larsson.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we played in the European with Drogheda United, and it was great. We both were wearing a number 17 jersey. We both scored. We drew 1-1, and there was a great headline in the Irish papers about, obviously because it's we're biased. It's Ireland, about everybody went to look at a certain number 17, and it turned out to whatever it turned out to be. No, he was phenomenal. And then I guess one player that sticks out to me, and it wasn't a game, it was training, but when I went over to Everton, I remember playing in training. Wayne Rooney was there, and he just he moved a couple of months later to Man United. But I remember he had scored that goal against Arsenal, and there was a lot of talk about him. And I remember in training thinking, you know what, I'm gonna mark this guy. I'm gonna see what he's about, and I couldn't get close to him. I mean, I'm like, not that it was nothing to do with like him being quicker than me in terms of physically. He was just mentally so much quicker than me, and every time I thought I was close to him, I'd look around and he's somewhere else. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell is this guy? He's on, like, what's going on? And I remember thinking, like, he's just so good. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was. He always looked like he was designed to play football, right? He was designed to play football. Okay, I'm going to ask the best stadium you played in, or your favorite stadium that you played in.
Best stadium I played in, favorite stadium I played in. I don't know. I mean, I really like the Azadi, obviously, over in Iran, the national team stadium where Persepolis played. I love playing because, like, they were, the biggest, obviously the derby was 90,000, and then because the weather was so bad, it would have been more. And a month later, we played in my first Asian Champions League game against Al Shabaab of Dubai, and that was 96,000 people. And I mean, to have 96,000 people in a stadium, was not many stadiums in the world can hold that. So that has to be my favorite. The most intimidating stadium, and again, I forgot about this. One of the best players I played against, though, the most intimidating stadium I ever played in. We played It was actually, the winners go to the World Cup 2013 for the 2014 World Cup. We played Cameroon with the Libyan national team, and it was in Cameroon, and Cameroon hadn't lost a home game in 37 years. And I remember thinking, 37 years, that's impossible. What? Like, I've never heard of any team do that. And well, I remember, like, you know, the bus drops you off about a mile down the road, and you have to go through these, you know, like all the home fans, like, you know, going crazy, and you're like, oh, is this even safe? And then the atmosphere is just electric. And Samuel Eto'o was the captain at the time. And,
wow.
Yeah, we lost 1-0. But that was the most intimidating atmosphere I ever played in.
Now, listeners, if I reacted to Arsenal before, Tommy has just reacted to Samuel Eto'o like an excited child. I'm not sure, but Tommy is an Inter fan, so Samuel Eto'o to him has just set him up.
Yeah,
no, big time. Actually, one of my favorite players of all time, I have to say, Samuel Eto'o.
Yeah, I love watching him play. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Perfect. And finally, I think I might know the answer already, but the best manager that you've played under?
Yeah, Stephen Kenny for sure. Again, and it's, you know, and I don't say that lightly because there's so many other good managers I played in, with maybe on paper may have better pedigrees, but no, he's the best manager, and I hope he goes on and proves how good he is in the international stage.
Yeah, me too. Wow, Eamon, that was fantastic. Thank you. That was really interesting. Tommy, do you have anything to say?
No, well, I mean, thank you so much, Eamon. We would like you, I mean, if you enjoyed this, it would be lovely to have you back once the season actually starts for the Northern Colorado hailstorm. And
cool.
Yeah, it's been great to interview you. I loved your answer to your mate. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. He was very insistent on Instagram. He was like, no, ask him that. Don't worry, ask him. But thank you so much for your time, and good luck with all of your endeavors. And we'll talk again soon, I guess.
Perfect, lads. Cheers for having me on.